once you interact with mayors from other African countries, you realize that the problem with not being able to provide as much housing as needed, which I think they need to revise so that we can be able to provide better housing for those that who cannot afford.
We are in Sao Paulo, where the board of directors of Metropolis has been meeting this week, and I'm here joined by Councillor Morero of Johannesburg. In this time of climate change, more and more cities are facing severe or even very severe episodes of water scarcity. What is, in your view, the long-term view that cities have to start preparing in order not to get into the situation? What advice would you have for cities that may face water scarcity?
Well, certainly, and thanks for this opportunity to have this discussion. Indeed, you would know that South Africa itself is a water scarce country, and over the years we've been trying to control and manage demand and also manage consumption. And part of the programs that we have tried to bring on board, one is to ensure that we keep and maintain our blue drop water status, which is currently at about 99%, to ensure that the water is clean, which is the first thing, that water should be clean for consumption. And I'll try to encourage, first and foremost, most cities to also focus on ensuring that their water is clean for consumption. Two, we're also looking at harvesting of rainwater, especially for irrigation and all other things that are not consumption related. But over and above, we need to ensure that all of us all over the world starts maintenance and conservation of water, understanding that indeed water is a scarce resource and all of us have to take action to protect this resource. So those are a few things that would be helpful to the world. But in Johannesburg, we think we are leading in that situation, getting our people to know how to use water. However, we still have challenges in as far as our technical losses, which is as a result of infrastructure. So we are focusing on refurbishment of the water infrastructure, which will encourage cities to ensure that the infrastructure is always kept proper, so that you don't experience water losses, which generally affects your water situation.
We know that worldwide, about 1 in 5 people in the ages between 15 and 24 are out of education or out of work. This is also a situation in Johannesburg, where many young people don't have opportunities. What can a city do to provide this kind of opportunities for development to its young people?
Well, true, we are experiencing high levels of unemployment, especially of the youth, which Johannesburg, as you know, we've got the highest population of young people between the ages of 14 and 35, which then means that we are a youthful city, and it requires us to focus on creating opportunities for young people. As the city of Johannesburg, part of what we've been doing as the city government, one, we are providing what we call internships. The intention of that is to begin to prepare young people for employment, for the work environment and all those issues. Two, we are also preparing them in terms of training opportunities. Johannesburg, we've got just around 3 universities or so that are located within Johannesburg. We've got technical colleges that are within Johannesburg, and some of them the city government has partnered with them to ensure that we support youth skills and development. We also run different youth skills programs. We also run entrepreneurships for SMMEs, which are owned by young people and driven by young people. We've got a full support that we provide through our economic development department. So those are some of the key issues that we try to do as the city. Of course, national government then comes in with quite a number of programs. Some are directly run by us, which is what we call the Extended Public Works Program, which helps us to bring young people into the mainstream of the economy through opportunities, job opportunities, but with an intention of really providing training and skills. We also run CPWP programs, which are aimed at helping young people to access job opportunities. So those are national government programs, but are run through the municipalities. So there are things that we're doing. And of course, partnering with the private sector through our Department of Economic Development with institutions like Harambee. Harambee is an organization in Johannesburg, in South Africa, that is aimed at matching young people's qualification with what is needed in the market by the private sector, with an intention of assisting young people to access jobs. We're also focusing on an entrepreneur program, because we also believe it's not about just finding jobs, it's also about creating entrepreneurs so that the young people can form or become part of the economy of the country. So that's what we have been doing. But of course, our advice to all cities is to try as many instruments as possible, but focusing, of course, on youth training, development and skills, because in that way they are able to fend for themselves. They can also go into other countries where there might be opportunities based on that training and skills. So I'd advise cities to focus in the main on skills development and entrepreneur development for young people.
Johannesburg has been an active member of Metropolis, and about a decade ago it was leading an initiative called Caring Cities. Just back then already Johannesburg was leading the way to a topic that has become central to our organization, care and caregiving. So how is now this agenda relevant to cities like yours? The agenda of care, the agenda of supporting caregivers?
Well, Johannesburg, we still focused on that. You'd know that as and when you pass our budgets, we ensure that, for example, pensioners and the aged, we continue to ensure to give them a better environment and reduce the burden on the quality of life in terms of payment of services. We provide them with rebates. We provide the agent with access to water. The unemployed and the old do have what we call an extended social package. In that package, we provide them with free water, 15 kiloliters of water, so that they don't have to pay. We also don't have to pay ages from 70 and above. They don't pay for what we call property rates, as long as their property is just between 1 million and 2 million rands. We also provide for the aged shelters, or rather what we call old age homes, for those that do not have their homes, which are owned by the city. And part of us caring, we continue to build just around 1,000 to 3,000 houses for those who do not have houses, who are on our waiting list. We are now building flats, what we call high density, to provide for those who do not have. And they basically get those free, as long as they're not employed, they're poor, they don't have money. We give them those houses for free. Secondly, we have those that may not access the free package. They may also unable to access the mortgage in the banks because of their salaries that they earn. They're above the free and they are not within what the banks can give. We have a program called Flips, and that program is focused on those so that we can assist them and subsidize them and close the gap between the bank. And yes, there are challenges, but we try our level best to provide those as a caring city.
Housing, as you're just saying, is a crucial part of the social fabric of the city, and we've been discussing examples of South Asia, North America, South America, West Africa, here in Sao Paulo. What would be your words or your lessons from Johannesburg for those African cities in particular, but also in other parts of the world that are growing very rapidly, that are now in this very rapid urbanization phase, what has South Africa learned, and what has a city like Johannesburg learned that you think is important for these rapidly urbanizing cities to take into account in providing housing and a good social services in the city?
And then especially with African countries is the cost of the land, which I think the cost of the land has been pushed too high, and it has become unaffordable for citizens and residents of the cities. So which I think the primary intervention by government is to lessen the cost of the land, so that once land costs are lower, it then becomes quite easier to can fund development projects for housing. So that would be one of the advices, because once we interact with mayors from other African countries, we realize that the problem with is not being able to provide as much housing as needed. It's as a result of the cost of the land, which I think they need to revise how the land is being costed, so that we can be able to provide better housing for those that we cannot afford. For example, in Johannesburg, we do have our urban framework development, which helps us, our urban development framework, which helps us to determine how we deal with land parcels, which are government parcels, and how we're going to intervene in development, whether housing, commercial, and all sorts of things. So it guides us on the interventions that we need to do, which I would advise African countries in particular, or cities in Africa, that we look into the cost of the land, and in that we will be able to open up the potential to provide better housing for our own people at affordable costs. And I think also in the long term, we might have to look at how do we ensure that the banks and financial institutions are brought into this program so they can fully participate. Government and the banks have come together to provide the solution. So the private sector has to play an important role to unlock this potential.
Thanks so much, Mr. Morero. Very useful, important lessons from one of the largest mega cities of the Southern Hemisphere, Johannesburg, which is the hub of this great mega city of Gauteng. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Director.